There are many lies in the world today that can deceive us and keep us from the truth about God, about our identity, about love, and about purpose. Lies can creep into any part of our existence, and if we're not careful, they can become our reality and have a really negative impact on our life. Where did these lies originate? If God is real and he loves us, why does it seem like there are so many things trying to pull us into darkness and despair and harm us? Well, whether we're aware of it or not, there is a spiritual war going on in this world. And lies are the main tactic of our adversary. In Ephesians 6, we read, "For our struggle is not against flesh and blood, but against the rulers, against the authorities, against the powers of this dark world, and against the spiritual forces of evil in the heavenly realms." The truth is, we are all part of this spiritual war. And it's against an enemy who wants to harm us and prevent us from being close to God. And the problem is that many people aren't even aware that it's happening. Although the war between good and evil, truth and lies is real, it has already been won. Every person, including us, who's been born since sin began, has been born into a flawed, imperfect world. We in our natural state could never be good enough to just be in God's presence. That's why God provided a way for us to be reconciled to him, so we could have a repaired relationship once again and be saved for eternity. Jesus bridged the gap between sinful man and a perfect God. He paid our ransom and won the spiritual war for us. But then he rose from the dead 3 days later. And our sins died with him, but they stayed in the ground forever. That means when Jesus overcame that sin on the cross, Satan and all of his demons lost their power for the rest of eternity. Once we accept the free gift of salvation and the endless forgiveness that goes along with it, sin can no longer separate us from God. So how do we know if something is a spiritual attack? Well, earlier in 2 Corinthians, we read how we don't wage war like the world does. Spiritual warfare is a battle of the mind. So let's look at verse 5 again in its fullness this time. It says, "We demolish arguments and every pretension that sets itself up against the knowledge of God, and we take captive every thought to make it obedient to Christ." Our thoughts hold a lot of power. They impact our emotions, our attitudes, and even our physical bodies. Think about this. Where do a lot of the things we struggle with most, like selfishness, hatred, greed, envy, lust, even anxiety and depression, where do they all begin? Right up here. If Satan can get a hold of our minds and trick us there, everything else can follow suit. So I'm going to say it one more time. Spiritual warfare is a battle of the mind. We must take our thoughts captive and compare them to the truth of the Bible and what Jesus Christ did for us. How do we win against the devil's schemes? Know the truth and use the truth. Ephesians 6 talks about the armor of God. It says, "Finally, be strong in the Lord and in his mighty power. Put on the full armor of God so that you can take your stand against the devil's schemes." As we, the church, go out and fight against the schemes of the enemy, we can move in powerful ways to defeat darkness while we're on earth. Now, one day, Jesus is going to come back, and Satan will be put in his proper place once and for all. But until then, we must stand up and fight for ourselves, for our families, for our loved ones, and for anyone that doesn't yet know Jesus.